Give me a signal. Okay, let's get this party started. Welcome everybody to Launch Class, Lesson 4. We're excited that you're here, and we're going to talk about health strategies and fitness strategies. But first, I think we have a few introductions to make. If you haven't been here before, we're excited that you're here, particularly because we're talking about health and fitness, and which helps us to achieve. And more importantly than that, though, your coaches are here for you, and we are very excited for you. My name is Coach Al, and the other coaches have a similar name tag. And we're excited to help you successfully launch into your career, finances, family, health and fitness tonight. Those kind of things to, as the website says, help you do things that we didn't necessarily understand when we were younger. So that you can avoid some of the pitfalls, some of the minefields that we went through, and have more success, more abundant life. And so it's all about you. You've heard it said it's not, but tonight it's all about you. We're here for you, help us to help you. And there's a survey that you can grab when you came in, or when you go out, help us to fine-tune what we teach in Launch Class, so that it'll be even more helpful for you, because we're just guessing at this point what we think we would like to do. But with your help, we'll make it even better. So last week we talked about setting and achieving meaningful goals, and you can get that information off the website if you weren't here. This week it's on health and fitness strategies. Next week will be on finding and choosing a good career. I wish I had that kind of help when I was getting started. So we'll see if we can touch on some helpful things, helpful strategies there for you. But before we do that, let's do a quick introduction. This is a diagram that we'll often refer to. We call it the life choices diagram. And it's just something that was developed in our men's group. A way of looking at life, analyzing life that might help us make good decisions, better decisions. And if you've been to the website, you understand there's 7 areas in life: spiritual, family, social, financial, career, physical, mental. Today is mostly the physical one. A little bit of mental, because it relates to things like habits, and mental is, putting it all together, and our habits affect, everything. But the main idea of this life choices diagram is that here's you or me or anybody. We have choices. We have choices in life, because life is squeezing us. There's pressures in life, right? Financial pressures, health pressures, time pressures, bosses, spouses, you name it, right? Life presses down on us. God's pressing up, encouraging us to go in a good direction, a better direction. God says, let me help you. Let me walk with you. And so we have to make a choice. We can turn left to escape, which we have a few ideas here: fun, food, pleasure, shopping, etc. Or we can turn right towards the problem. It could be any kind of problem in 7 areas of our life. Today we'll talk about typically the physical one. But the idea here is we're after the lasting peace, joy, happiness, confidence, fulfillment. That's what we really want. So what we're looking for is something between our ears. It's a feeling, right? And sometimes it's fleeting, it's nebulous. We're not sure what that looks like. So we think we might have some of that good stuff, some of the fun, if we go over here. But guess what? It's not lasting. If we have things over here that aren't working for us, for example, we have challenges in relationships. Doesn't matter what we do. Doesn't matter how much success we have. We're not going to be very happy. I think we understand that. So the basic idea here is we want to have some success, some confidence in every one of these 7 areas, so that our life will be rolling more smoothly and we'll have more lasting peace, happiness, confidence, fulfillment. And if we're not there right now, we can think about what area we're missing. And if we turn towards the problem, I can tell you this is the main idea. It's not as hard as what we think. It's not as painful, or, we have fear, uncertainty, and doubt when we do that. But God will meet us there. That's kind of a promise from God, especially if we ask Him to, but He will always meet us there if we have courage. Courage, go towards the problem. That's what we will encourage everybody to do. But we want to give you some tools, some practical tools that will help you in these areas to have more success, and some knowledge. Today is very much about knowledge, as you see in one of the slides. A little bit of knowledge goes a long way when it comes to health and fitness, but other areas as well. Okay. foundational principles in terms of health and fitness, in terms of the physical side. 1 Corinthians 6:20. We're not going to quote the Bible a lot, but there's a few here that seem to help us when it comes to the physical side. 1 Corinthians 6:20 says, glorify God with your body. We were made in His image. Men and women were all made in God's image. So it's funny, the Bible says glorify God with your body. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Well, the second point would be enjoy and make the most of your body. It's God's gift to us. So God gives us this gift called the body. What we do with it then could be our gift back to Him and to others. And here's a couple of biblical passages that I think about a lot when it comes to this kind of a subject. Two of them. They're kind of serious. In Hosea 4:6 it says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And it definitely applies in the area of health, for sure, as we'll talk about here. We don't learn this stuff at school. That's the whole idea of why we're here. Launch Class is trying to teach things that aren't taught in school, typically aren't taught at home or even in church for that matter. And the second one is without vision, the people perish. So knowledge and vision, two big words that we're after here in Launch Class. We want to help you with knowledge and vision in all 7 areas of our lives. As I said, these certainly apply to our bodies, and we'll get into that. Our health mainly depends on 5 things. What we eat, our exercise, our rest, stress levels, and our environment. And that environment could be anything. It could be external toxins. It could be, gosh, they're talking a lot about EMF, like electromagnetic frequencies now from our cell phones and our cordless phones, all this environmental stuff. But I think it's more or less in that order. If I think of my personal experience, for example, if I want to, let's just say I want to look good physically, what's more important, how I eat or the exercise? My personal experience, my observation is eating is more important than exercise. So it's kind of in that order. Eating, exercise, rest is really very important actually. Stress and environment. So like most things we talk about, without God, it's hard. With God, it's a lot easier. And if you haven't tried that before, the Bible says try, you might like it. That's what the Bible says. Try me on for size, God says. See if it works. See if these principles work. Much easier with God. And that's, of course, what we talk about in this life choices diagram. So there's a saying that, I don't know where it came from, but it really makes sense. One of the choices we have in life is we can do things easy hard or hard easy. If we try to do things the easy way, it's going to be hard later. So the easy way in terms of food, a very, very simple example, let's just say we eat a lot of Twinkies. Twinkies taste great. That's easy. Guess what? It's going to be hard down the road, isn't it? That's kind of obvious. But in relationships, same thing. We take the easy way. In other words, I don't feel like making an effort, being loving and kind. I feel like just doing my own thing. Well, guess what? It's going to be hard. And we could say the same for exercise. But for sure, it applies in this area of health. And a simple example, we'll touch on it. We'll get into more detail on this one here as we go on. But we talk about lifestyle-related disease. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer, even Alzheimer's. They say these are all lifestyle-related diseases that are primarily the result of our lifestyle choices. And so, easy hard or hard easy. The hard thing might be to discipline ourselves to eat better, discipline ourselves to exercise. And then we can enjoy it, and life will be easier going forward. We'll have energy, we'll have strength. If we don't, well, we'll have perhaps serious health challenges at a younger age. So that's the idea of easy hard or hard easy. It's our choice. It's a good way to think about things. That here's a decision I need to make. Is it easy hard or hard easy? Which way do I want to go? Usually if we do the hard thing first, it'll be easier. We'll be able to enjoy it down the road. So let's start with some fitness ideas before we get into the actual health stuff. So in the exercise, the reference material before the class, there's some stuff about this book, Body by Science. I remember when I read this book, it's probably 10 years ago now. It was fascinating to me. This book, the subtitle, it says, A research-based program for strength training, bodybuilding, and complete fitness in 12 minutes a week. Complete fitness in 12 minutes a week. Isn't that a crazy idea? But it's real, it's true, it's good. Trust me, I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't. So if you did some of the exercise or watched some of the material, the video, you'll get it, you have a sense of that. But I have these books and they'll be in this big suitcase here. You can borrow them for 1 or 2 weeks if you want to. You're welcome to study it. So there's a few things we'll talk about body by science. And I forgot to bring, oh, here we go. I have a whole bunch of reference material here in addition. So the main concept in Body by Science, Doug McGuff says, the author of this book, Doug McGuff, and he's a medical doctor, he's an emergency ER doctor, emergency room doctor. He says that weight training is far better for us than long, slow cardio. Most of us are aware of cardio. We need to get some cardio exercise. We need to do something to get our heart rate up, right? And typical long, slow cardio could be going for a walk, going for a jog, stationary bike, Stairmaster, elliptical, those kind of things. And those are good, don't get me wrong. But he proved, really beyond a question in my own mind, that weight training is better. If you have a choice of either one, weight training is better because you can weight train in such a way that you do get your cardio up, and so you take care of both. And he proved, for example, he trained a lot of top athletes, and he said they hit a plateau and they were just doing their actual exercise, like riding a bike or whatever, mountain cycling or whatever it was. When they added weight training to it, they improved their performance. And I found this out through water skiing myself. Because when we start our water ski season, we do the slalom water skiing. It only takes 17 seconds to ski through that slalom course. And we typically do 2 passes before we take a break. So maybe and then with the turnaround and everything, maybe a minute and a half of water skiing. And we're winded, especially at the start of the season. We're really winded a lot. So one year, I remember, I said, I'm going to try a whole bunch of cardio in the off season, which is what I'm talking about, right? Get your heart rate up, stationary bike, you name it, things like that. And I didn't notice the difference when it came to water ski season. I was surprised. I didn't know. I was still as winded as ever starting water ski season. So I'm scratching my head. Didn't make sense to me. Then I read this book. So next season, I tried doing extra weights in the off season. And guess what? Not nearly as winded at the start of water ski season. So this book proved itself to me. For athletic performance, even cardio-related athletic performance, the weight training is better. And it's phenomenal, the idea that you can do it 12 minutes a week. So he says, and this is a quote from Doug McGuff. Here's just a handout that for Body by Science here. I'm going to have to manage all these papers. Okay. 2 quotes, I think, from Doug McGuff. He says, resistance training done properly will improve all aspects of your health, including insulin sensitivity, which is what people that have challenges with their weight deal with. So resistance training, in other words, weight training, will help with all aspects of health, including insulin sensitivity, lower back pain, cholesterol levels, and bone density. You wouldn't think these things would affect weight would affect that, but they do. And that's a quote from Doug McGuff. Now, there's other information that's related to that that would say any kind of high-intensity interval training, which is what Doug's program talks about. It's in the category of high-intensity interval training. Is good for that because high-intensity interval training works our muscles and our cardiovascular system. And so what I learned about before this book from Dr. Mercola on the website, they talked about burst training, which is like this high-intensity interval training. Burst training is going hard at any exercise for 30 seconds, as hard as you can. Of course, your heart rate goes way up. And then you take a break for 1 to 2 minutes. You go hard again for 30 seconds. You only do that 5 or 6 times and you're totally wasted. You have an awesome workout. So that's called burst training, but same idea. So what Doug does is what he does in his 12 minutes is he's got 5 major exercises. He prefers using machines, but you can do with weights. One's a bench press, one's a leg press. There's 3 others. Pull down and pull forward. But they work your whole body. And you only do about 1 to 2 minutes on each set, each exercise, with a 1 or 2 minute break. You do that all in 12 minutes, and he says 12 minutes a week is all you need. Here's another one. He says, I like this a lot. And he actually says, do it slow. Do your reps really slow so that you can't hurt yourself. Because he says you can, even for seniors, he says, especially if you're in your older years, he believes you should be weight training. He likes to brag that he helps seniors to ditch their walkers, which I think that's awesome. Because of course, the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So where do our abilities, physical abilities come from? They come from our muscles, our strength. I think that's all I wanted to do for Body by Science. There's a number of things to touch on here. So that's the key one for fitness ideas. I didn't touch on the first one. Dr. Mercola, his article, and this one here. How to make yourself love exercise. And Mercola on his website, he's my favorite doctor. He's my favorite health guy. His website, Mercola.com, is the most popular natural health website on the internet. And this is just one. And he recommended Doug McGuff. He says, any exercise will make us feel better emotionally. That's a key thing. And we talked about that with one of the books in the 7 areas called the Daniel Plan. It's about the mind-body connection. And when we sometimes we're not feeling great up here. Sometimes it's just because we need to do something on our physical health. So any exercise will make us feel better emotionally. There's a good, strong mind-body connection. So if you're not feeling great here, go for a walk. Start by doing some exercise. It will probably help. Almost any exercise will lengthen our life and mobility. That's what we talked about. A little bit of weight training will often help seniors get rid of their walkers. Almost any exercise will increase our energy and sex drive. There's an attraction. Almost any exercise lowers back pain and improves our sleep quality. And I was going to mention one other one, but it slips my mind now. So that's Body by Science. What is next? I'm excited. Oh, we are what we eat. This gets into a little bit more scientific, I would say. But the big bugaboo, as most people have heard about, is inflammation. And this inflammation thing confounds a lot of us. And I'm not going to say I'm a know-it-all of this one at all, but I've read a lot about inflammation because it causes people to have to get their knees replaced and their hips replaced. It causes heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Is a major, major problem. There's a doctor in town, my favorite doctor, his name's Arnold Bobran. He's got this cute little colorful wheel. He quotes Hippocrates. But Hippocrates said all disease begins in the gut. And it's fascinating. I've got a sore shoulder, inflammation. I've got a sore knee, inflammation. It begins in my gut. How is that? How does that make sense? That is the latest research. All disease begins in the gut. So he says here, poor gut health leads to inflammation. It leads to autoimmune disease, leaky gut, malabsorption, sluggish metabolism, hormonal imbalance, heart disease, pain, chronic fatigue, infertility, menopause, weight gain, anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, allergies, celiac, Crohn's, colitis, Alzheimer's, MS. Am I reading right? Thyroid, fibro joint disease. It all starts in the gut, according to Arnold Bobran, and according to this fellow who wrote the book called The Autoimmune Fix. I wish I could remember his name. No, I can't remember his name right now. The book Autoimmune Fix says the exact same thing. Inflammation begins in your gut. It can manifest anywhere in your body. So here our poor doctors are trying to figure out what's the cause of inflammation in our shoulder or our knee. These guys say it starts in your gut. And so what does that mean? Well, it means food sensitivities for the most part. Dr. Arnell, I've talked to him a few times, and he says the most common food sensitivity, and everyone's heard of this, is celiac, wheat gluten. Most common of everybody. Years ago when I decided to cut back on wheat, which is bread mostly, bread and white pasta, those are the key sources of wheat in our diets. When I did that, I found I could eat anything and didn't gain weight. I was really surprised. And so over time, I've cut back even more. I had a sore knee a year and a half ago in the summer, and I couldn't figure out why. I decided to cut back on my wheat and sugar. Sure enough, my sore knee went away. And it was because I couldn't train properly for water skiing. So I'm going to refer to a few books here. These are books, these three, I took them off my desk at the office. I'm an investment advisor, and a lot of my clients are seniors, so we talk about health. If they want to talk about health, we talk about health. Because I think we'd all agree that when you start to lose your health, health is more important than money, right? And so here's a book that I heard about many years ago, Dr. Rosedale, the Rosedale Diet. And yes, it'll help lose weight, but it's mostly about overall health. And I remember the story from this book. It's a powerful story. His father-in-law was complaining that whenever he walked any distance, he got major pains in his lower legs. It's called claudication. It's from our arteries of our legs getting plugged up, starting to get plugged up. Atherosclerosis, hardening of arteries, plaque buildup in our arteries, all the same thing. So he told his father-in-law, Dad, if you cut back on your wheat and your sugar, you'll probably have less pain. Well, a year or two went by, his dad didn't do it. It's hard, it's really hard. Wheat and sugar, bread and sugar, is very addictive. I've been through it, I know. But the good news is, this is the hard, easy, hard thing. Do the hard thing, and once we get it, I mean, that's only one food. There's so many other wonderful foods to eat. Just get out of the habit. And pretty soon, after a week or two, we don't crave it anymore. And we're free, right? So what happened in this story, it's just priceless. His dad, his father-in-law, was all depressed because he had planned this European trip. And of course, a European trip involves a lot of walking, right? And he was telling Dr. Rosedale, and he's so sad about this. He said, well, Dad, what did I tell you? If you will, now you're 2 years down the road, if you will cut way back on your wheat and your sugar, there's a good chance you'll be okay. 2 weeks later, he did it. And 2 weeks later, he was fine. His walking was fine. Because what happens when our arteries get plugged up, we only get pain once they're like almost totally plugged, like over 95% plugged, right? Or I'm not gonna be a doctor, so whatever it is, they get almost plugged so that when we exert them and push that pressure, push that blood flow, we get the pain. So all we have to do is cut back 5 or 10% of that blockage, and the pain's gone. Our arteries aren't clear, just the blockage is cut back. That's all that happened for his father-in-law. Just cut back that blockage, and he was fine. This book is by Dr. Mercola. I've already talked about Dr. Mercola. He wrote this, I don't know how many years ago. Not that many. I'm going to guess 8. See if I'm correct. Copyright 2003. More than 8. Time flies. We're getting old. Don't worry, you'll catch up. He called this one the no-grain diet. Wheat is the worst, but he says for most human beings, they don't do well with grains. So does the guy that wrote the Autoimmune Fix. His name will probably pop into my mind. He said the same thing. Most people. Well, actually, Mercola said most. The guy that wrote Autoimmune Fix, he said all humans don't do well with gluten. Just to whatever degree. It causes trouble for everybody. So Dr. Mercola wrote that book about the no-grain diet. He says almost everybody does better when they cut back on grains. Now this one is quite fascinating. It's called Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter. And he's a brain surgeon. And after doing lots of brain surgeries, he figured out people with Alzheimer's, dementia, they have this white matter built up in their brain. And he figured by trial and error, guess what causes the white matter to build up in our brain? Same thing, wheat and sugar. All three of these books talk about wheat and sugar from a different perspective. They are seriously inflammatory for most people. So if you have sore joints, or I don't want to talk like a doctor, what Dr. Mercola says, now I'm going to get to actually his material, Dr. Mercola's material, because I don't have to say it, he'll say it. But the bottom line is cutting back on wheat and sugar is huge for most people. So Dr. David Perlmutter says that the cause of Alzheimer's dementia is wheat and sugar. And he's the brain surgeon. He knows. And so he tells people, cut back on wheat and sugar and you can stop the progress and even to some degree reverse those, is what he says. Okay. Some popular basics. Dr. Mercola, we already said that. These are part of the reference material that we sent out last week. So I just printed off a little bit of the reference material. This is from Dr. Mercola's website. This is his current eating plan. And I'm just going to talk about level 1. So he says, avoid grains, especially wheat, which we've already talked about, sugar, non-fibrous carbs. In other words, carbs that are natural, like from the actual food or the fruit or the vegetable, those carbs are good. Non-fibrous carbs. Essentially, he's talking about potatoes, to some degree, even rice, but it's really the anti-carbs that we're talking about. Margarine is very bad because it's modified. It's unnatural to our bodies, so margarine, processed oils are not good. Processed meats, processed vegetable oils, similar to margarine. Table salt, in other words, white salt, artificial sweeteners. Here's a few of his quotes. He's really, really big on this idea that we need to eat more good fats. And I'll read a quote. High quality fat is one of the most important nutrients for you. This is how he starts. If you read the material, this is how he starts. Today, the general guideline for the Canada Food Guide, I guess, the general guideline for dietary fat intake is that it should only be 10% of your overall diet. You know the food pyramid? The small piece is fat. The big piece is bread. And Mercola says it's essentially the opposite is what you actually should eat. So today the guideline is fat intake 10%. He believes, Dr. Mercola says, I believe that this is one of the most destructive health recommendations that have pervaded the U.S. food system because you need at least 50 to 75% of your daily caloric intake in the form of healthy fats. This is one of the basic principles that I have incorporated into my nutrition plan. So that's one of the first principles is he highly recommends that we cut back on our body getting energy from our carbs to getting the energy from fats. And he says people are much, much healthier when they do it. So here's some good fats. He says increase butter, eggs, olive oil, flax seeds. Not flaxseed oil. Flax seeds ground are far, far better than flaxseed oil. In other words, the whole plant. Raw milk, animal fat, ideally grass-fed animal fat, avocados, and coconuts. Those are the sources of good, healthy fats. And the other one would be, one of his principles, his foundational principles are eat lots of raw vegetables. I think that's all I want on this one. And so this is, that was the intro. This is his level 1 of his nutrition plan. Level 1, he says, I think that's probably something we've already said. Eliminate all wheat, gluten, and highly allergenic foods from your diet. Well, how do you figure that out? What are the highly allergenic foods? Well, wheat is the most common one to everybody, but Dr. Bogren told me some people have corn as a food intolerance. It causes inflammation. In my case, it was kind of a bit of a long story, but about 15, 20 years ago, I had sore knees, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought I needed surgery, arthroscopic surgery. So I eventually got in with the doctor, Dr. Hurd in Banff, who I think he did surgery for the Calgary Stampeders. And he said, I could scrape on your kneecap. It's probably just calcium deposits. That's what he said. He recommended just cut back on the weight you're using for your squats. That's what he said. I said to myself, that's not a good answer. I'm not old enough to cut back on the weight in my squats. So I did some research and I found out that what could cause calcium deposits in our body. what I landed on was magnesium. If we don't have enough magnesium, the calcium doesn't get absorbed properly. So what I found is taking a calcium magnesium supplement helped me. At that time in my life, I got rid of my knee pain. Go on a few more years further, maybe 5 years ago, and I had knee pain again, mostly my right knee. And so I got thinking, now I'm learning more about inflammation. Well, what could be causing it? What have I changed in my diet? I landed on, I was eating more of this mountain mix. Peanuts, raisins, nuts, mountain mix. I'm eating a lot of mountain mix. I wonder, are peanuts possibly inflammatory? I read about it, sure enough. Peanuts can be inflammatory. So I cut back on that mountain mix, my knee pain went away for the second time. And the third time I told you about a year and a half ago, summer before last, I had major pain in my right knee from water skiing. I couldn't even walk when I did 2 sets that night or the next day, and I wasn't happy about it at all because I really wanted to train and compete. So then all I could think of was cutting back on wheat and sugar. So I did, and sure enough, this summer, didn't have any pain. So food definitely was everything for my knee pain, for sure. So Dr. Stephen Gundry, I don't think I have anything from him. Okay, one more quote here from Dr. McCullough. Luckily, I make good notes. He said, eat as much high-quality, healthy fat as you want. We already know that one. Okay, I think there's one more. This is Mercola, why healthy dietary fat is crucial. So it's part of his level 1 eating plan. Carbohydrate versus fat. What really makes you pack on the pounds? Okay, this is helpful. This is the exact opposite. Okay, I'm going to read the whole thing. For the last 5 decades, Americans have been told to eat a diet high in complex carbohydrates and low in saturated fats. Even people with diabetes have been told to get 50 to 60% of their daily caloric intake in the form of carbohydrates. At the same time, healthy high-fat foods are shunned because of their perceived health risks. You've already heard me say this, but this is the quote from the article. This is the exact opposite of what a person with diabetes, or any person generally, needs to stay healthy. In fact, this shift to a more grain-based diet has led to increased rates of obesity, diabetes, and chronic disease. So that really means most of our lifestyle-related diseases, which is the heart disease, diabetes, cancer, etc. Dr. Stephen Gundry, who Dr. Mercola likes, and he's interviewed him on his website. Dr. Gundry's food, his favorite food, is olive oil. He recommends, Dr. Gundry says, this is a quote from him, food is just a delivery vehicle for olive oil. That's what he says. He recommends 12 tablespoons a day of olive oil. Look him up, Dr. Stephen Gundry. He's written a number of books on it, and Mercola really likes it. He talks a lot about lectins. Wheat gluten is a lectin, so there's more to this gluten idea. Gundry says it's the lectins, and there's a number of lectins, and it's different for everybody. And that's a good thing worth touching on. I almost forgot this food sensitivity thing. Well, how do we find out what we're sensitive to? Well, I've found out some of it from trial and error, but I still can have other food sensitivities. And on the previous slide, I think I wanted to tell a story about a friend of mine. So I won't say her name. I call her Susie. Susie is a senior. I know her well. I've known her for many years, and she had all kinds of health challenges. And she got some help a little bit from this doctor or that doctor, but she couldn't figure it out. Then I saw her. This is almost a year ago now. Then I saw her, and I said, Susie, you are looking great. She's in her 70s. Are you doing anything different? She said, yeah, I found an awesome doctor. She's the one who told me about Dr. Arnold Bowrun. And she told me about the autoimmune fix. His name's Tom, but I can't remember his last name. But look it up, the autoimmune fix. And she said that these guys fixed her up, got rid of all her challenges. And she was getting all these reactions from some different foods. And she didn't even know. It would surprise her, and all of a sudden she'd have this big rash or a swollen face or things like this, and she couldn't figure it out. It was her gut. Dr. Arnell and Tom Tom's got a lot of good videos on the internet, the guy that wrote the Autoimmune Fix. I can't remember his name. So they focused on healing her gut. She says, now I can eat things, this is a year later, now I can eat things like I haven't been able to eat for years, and I don't get a reaction to them. So that's why I love Dr. Arnold Borman. He's my favorite doctor now, because he fixed up Susie when nobody else could. So how you can go see a doctor like Arnold, but this idea, you can actually get tested. There's online tests that you can send a blood sample away, and you can get tested for food sensitivities. It's not that expensive, like less than $1,000. Maybe $600 for a few different tests. And you can send your blood away and get tested to find out what you're sensitive to. And it might be something that you've not all your life that's been problematic. And wouldn't it be wonderful to find out? So this other little article here. This one. 3 tablespoons of olive oil can save your life and make you slimmer. Same idea. She says 3. Dr. Gundry says 12. I take 4. 2 in the morning, 2 at night. I make a smoothie. Maybe I'll touch on that too. But she says olive oil has long been touted as healthy. Now it's also been credited with aiding weight loss and preventing cancer. So this article also about that one. Apple cider vinegar is great for your gut as well. In other words, you have good bacteria in your gut, and it's also good for keeping your colon clean. There's an old saying, you're only as healthy as your colon. And so I know that from personal experience. The reason I discovered apple cider vinegar is you hear about those probiotics, good bacteria for your gut. You can buy probiotic capsules and they're quite expensive. What else can you do? Well, that's one thing you can do. Apple cider vinegar, I discovered, it's good for your gut, good for your good bacteria. I think there's going to be more on the next slide. Yeah, you're only as old as your arteries. That's another good saying. If your arteries are clear, you're young. And if your arteries aren't, then that's a really strong sign of aging and potential trouble. So let's go into this idea. Some articles about reversing atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, plugging your arteries. Fermented foods, last slide. Fermented foods are extremely good for us. Dr. Arnold Borman, when I told him about this book, the first time I met him, I mentioned, oh, that sounds like a book that I have. It's called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. She's from the Weston A. Price Foundation. And he said, oh, that's like our Bible. It's a book called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. It's all about traditional foods that are often fermented with good bacteria, so they're alive. For example, this is a real simple one, raw milk. Raw milk is alive, the way God made it. Pasteurized milk is not. Dr. Mercola says pasteurized milk that we buy in the store is really not good for us at all, whereas raw milk is really good for us. It's alive. So my doctor recommended making your own kefir, so I do. I buy raw milk, make kefir. I have a couple glasses of kefir every day. That's what I make my smoothies with. It's kefir. Kefir's like yogurt, but it's runny, but good bacteria. The other one is kombucha tea. It's another good source of bacteria. It's funny you put all the sugar in it, but it converts the sugar into good bacteria, which is good for our gut. My doctor also highly recommends herbal cleanses. There's all kinds of different ones, but he says the easier ones that are like the best bang for the buck are from this company called Renew Life, and you can buy them at any health food store. So the Renew Life herbal cleanse is called Cleanse Smart. It's about $35, lasts for a month. It's really easy. 2 capsules in the morning, 2 capsules at night for a month. You don't change your diet at all. It cleanses out your system. And if you're really keen, try the do-it-yourself liver and gallbladder cleanse. I do that myself every 6 weeks. I won't get into details because it's kind of gross. But one of the world famous cancer doctors, I think her name was Joanna Budwig, she since passed away. She says this liver and gallbladder cleanse is the foundation of her Get Well program for everybody if they're sick. And I'll add a couple more. Dr. Mercola loves to talk about vitamin D, one of his foundational ideas. Dr. Joel Wallach loves trace minerals that you can get from Himalayan crystal salt, which is the pink salt. Or you can buy fulvic minerals, which are a little bit more expensive, but a great source of trace minerals. Now I'm going to touch on a couple other things here. So in terms of atherosclerosis, other than, let's see here, well, Matthias Rath, this is an e-book, Matthias Rath, and he's been around a long time, and he wrote this e-book, But he and Linus Pauling is a doctor who won two Nobel Prizes. One of them was, I think, for the study of vitamin C. And they proved, this is going on 30 years ago, they proved that they could regulate the atherosclerosis in rats, the hardening of arteries in rats, just by regulating their vitamin C. Isn't that amazing? So this little formula here is based on the Pauling-Rath formula. Amazol. It's made by a company here in Calgary, AOR, Advanced Orthomolecular Research, AOR. You can buy it at any health food store. You can buy it online. So TLC. Vitamin C, lysine, proline, and cofactors. And it says right on it, it's formulated to support cardiovascular health based on the research of Linus Pauling and Matthias Rath on the evolutionary relationship between heart health and vitamin C. In other words, this is a strategy for reducing plaque in our arteries. That's what they say. What he says, for sure. Here's another article. This is by a doctor named Daniel Cobb. He's not a medical doctor, he's an OMD, which I think is an Oriental medical doctor. But I exchanged emails with him. I found some of his articles on the internet, and I exchanged emails with him. And this one's all about the exact same thing. He uses the Linus Pauling Matthias Rath formula with his patients to clear their arteries. He says 2 to 6 months for the average person to clear their arteries using that formula. And he sent me in an email. He said, for our clients, our patients, it's far easier clearing their arteries of plaque than it is dealing with their back pain, which isn't that amazing? So that's exciting to me. People that are having these challenges, there are natural strategies through food and supplements to improve our health. Okay, so this is the one, the Pauling-Rath formula. I brought this one just for fun. So Dr. Mercola is really big on vitamin D. He's big on vitamin C, as you heard. They kind of recommend 2,000, because you ask how much a day. Well, 2,000 milligrams is what they recommend. I take 1,000 because I also take this. Dr. Mercola is not huge on supplements. He's really big on food, as you've heard me touch on a little bit here today. Ideally, we get our nutrients from food, but it's hard to get high-quality food with nutrition in it because it's grown somewhere far away and it's ripened in the truck and things like that. Obviously, organic, locally grown food is the best because it's going to have all that nutrition in the food. But nevertheless, Dr. Mercola does recommend 3 supplements that are his favorite, and this is one of them. I take it. It's called Astaxanthin. Astaxanthin. Look it up yourself. There's a lot of research. It's been around a long time. A lot of research on the internet about this one, but it's a high potency antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. That's why I like it, because it's the highest, the strongest, most powerful natural anti-inflammatory that we know about. All it is the red algae that the salmon eat before they swim upstream. It's where lobsters and crabs get their red tinges around the edges. It's from eating astaxanthin. It's just marine algae. And it's why salmon are red before they eat a lot of the stuff before they swim upstream. It's where they get all their strength and their stamina. So, and it's inexpensive. It's for a bottle like this, 60 tabs, take 2 a day for $20 at Community Natural. And so it's one of my favorites. So I only take 1,000 vitamin C because I take this. Otherwise I take 2,000 vitamin C. So those are a couple of the favorites. But do read about it because Mercola loves it, and it talks about reversing heart disease and all kinds of things, cancer, etc. So that's it for the main part. See if there's any questions for discussion here. We'll go into small groups here, gather around tables, and we'll go turn to some discussion here. Take turns sharing with each other some of what you learned today or what you liked about today's study. Ideally, what I encourage all of us to do, all of us, coaches, students alike, choose an important health or fitness goal based on what you learned through this study. And tell others what small steps you might take this week to move things forward, because it really helps us to achieve goals if we tell somebody about it. Helps us for accountability, and they can encourage us. And if you can think of anyone else who might benefit from this message, pass it on. It'll be on the website. And perhaps share it with them. Beyond that, join the mission of Launch Class to improve our society. help people get more successfully launched in their careers and their family and health and fitness. We'll do money management. We'll do lots of different areas. And tell others and invite a friend. Next week, we'll be on finding and choosing a good career. So invite a friend, bring them to that. Good stuff. Let's take a break. Thanks, guys.